Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. So we are going to continue with chapter 5 on project management. So we will look into the importance of project management, how to select the project, some of the project management tools, what is critical path, and also the benefits of project management tools. Okay, so what is a project? A project is a special set of activities with a clear beginning and end. Right? So every project, they would have one or more goals, some objectives, and also the task to finish up the project. A project also has a set of limitations and also constraints. Right? For example, it might have the constraint of maybe the project should run for 1 week or 1 month or 1 year, and then it might have some kind of budget that it needs to follow. Right, so on Padlet, I posted this question previously. The question was, assume that your assignment tree, which is the project, is the project. How do you manage the project to meet the deadline? What are the steps taken or what needs to be done? Right? So I took some of your friends' answer on Padlet. So Afifah, Azimah, and also Farazatul. So they said that, in my opinion, the first thing I will do is checking the deadline. Then I will consider the next step, which is I need to figure out free time on my timetable and group members. Next, we will decide the assignment so that it managed to be done before the deadline. Right? So this is correct because when you manage a project, of course, you need to know when do you have to have it done, right? And then from that deadline that you have, you know how many days or how many weeks that you have, and you try and figure out how and what are the tasks need to be done within that time period. Okay, so I took another of your friends' answer. So Shalini and Shivaani. So they said that, in my opinion, we always create a WhatsApp group to make a group chat about our assignment. Then we fix our time and date to meet and to decide what need to do for our assignment. Then we separate our works and done it. If got any doubt, we just chat in WhatsApp and clear it. Right? So this is one of the ways that you can do for your project. Right? So because now it's difficult to meet face to face, then you can use other ways to stay in contact with your friends and to ask them what are their progress and what other things need to be done. Right? There are 5 phases of project management. Right? So it says over here that project management is the application of a broad set of skills to properly initiate, plan, execute, control, and also close a project. Right? So the first thing that you need to do is you would initiate or define what that project is. You would state what is the problem, what are the problems, and also what are the goals of that project. Right? And then once you get that done, you would start and plan what are the steps, what are the tasks, what are the activities that need to be done in that project. And then you would execute it based on the tasks and activities that you have planned. And then you try and control your project through comparing the actual progress with the baseline, right? Because you have already planned, for example, for task 1 or activity 1, it should take about 5 days. And then you have task 2, it should take about 2 days. So you compare your plan with what really happens, right? To see whether your project is within the days that you thought you would be able to finish it or not, right? And then the last one, you have the closing. So you are nearly done with your project or you are already done with your project. So you would have your final report done and then you can close your project. The importance of project management. The role of the project manager So it can include planning and also define the scope of the project, activity planning and also the sequencing, resource planning, time estimating, right? Because the project manager would be in charge of knowing when the project needs to be done. And then there's also about cost estimating and also developing a budget, because in any project, it should have some kind of budget that they would be given, and then based on that budget, they would figure out what are the tasks, what are the activities that should be done and could be done within that limit. Okay? Here is showing a project management example. So this is a grant application form from UUM. Right, I'm just showing you how it looks like. Okay, so over here it asks about what is the title of the proposed research or the title of your project, and then some details of the researcher. Okay, so here is the important part, right? So it says over here, detail of research project. So it asks everything in details, where it asks about the research background, so the hypothesis, the research question, and also the literature review, which is what other people have done, right? And then it asks for what are the objective of it, and then how are you going to do that project, right? So that is under the research methodology. And then it would ask about what are the expected results and also benefits of this project. Okay, so that's why you have to manage your project properly, so that you know what you are doing and what would be the output of it. Okay, and also part of this form, it also asks about the budget, right? So in any grant, they would say that what is the maximum value that they would give to you, and then in the form they want you to list out how much money you would need for different parts of it. For example, here it has this budget for any salary, for any traveling and transportation, some rental, and so on, right? So you have to know the amount that you would need for each of these parts, right? So that's why in any project, you have to really know and really plan properly about all these things. Gantt chart was introduced in 1917 by Henry Lawrence Gantt, and chart has been used to control production. So until today, Gantt chart is still being used. Right? If we look back at the grant proposal form, you can see that under research methodology, it asks for Gantt chart of research activities, right? So that means that you would still have to draw or to include the Gantt chart in any of the project that you have. Okay, Gantt chart provides a graphical chart that shows scheduling to help planning, monitoring, and tracking resources in a project. So a simple Gantt chart can be drawn on a piece of paper. So you can use any software that you want, or you can just like draw it by hand. You can even use Microsoft Word to do it. So it says over here, among the software available, Microsoft Project, Microsoft Visio, and SmartDraw. Right, so here are just some of the examples that you can use. You can Google for any other software. It should be able to do similar thing. Okay, Gantt chart contains numbers of horizontal bars that shows the required and expected time to complete a project. So the bar, it can represent time in months, weeks, days, hours, or minutes. So it depends on your project. So each bar, it would represent one activity in the project, right? So in a project, you would have many activities, and then those many activities, they would have a bar to represent the time or how long it would take for each of the activity. This is an example of a Gantt chart. So this Gantt chart is about maths book development. So you can see over here that there are tasks and also the duration of it, right? So like the first one, it says, let's see, research phase, 5 days. And you can see that in the chart part of it, so it would take 5 days over here, right, in the one in green. And then interview subject matter, it takes 2 days. So this interview subject matter experts, that is within the research phase, right? So you can see that the interview subject matter experts and also search the web, so those two are within the research phase. So you can have as many title or subject or headings, right? So it depends on your project. There's no right or wrong way of doing it. It depends on how you manage your project, how you plan it as well. Okay, so here is another example. This is for wedding plan example, right? So it looks slightly different than before, but this is still a Gantt chart, right? So as long as it has the timeline and also the activities that need to be done, then that is a Gantt chart. So this is another example. So this was my Gantt chart when I did my PhD, right? So I just use Microsoft Word to do it, where each of these boxes represent the year, and then within those years, there are the months of it, like 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, right? And then I have my tasks over here. Number 1, literature review. Number 2, simulation. Number 3, hardware. And then at each of those tasks, there are the subtasks that need to be done. So this is just an example. Another example over here is you can do it this way as well, right? So instead of having your task written at your left side, you can write it within your timeline. Should be fine as well, right? So there are different ways of doing it. So it's up to you which way you prefer. Okay, other than the software that was mentioned previously, you can also use Project Libra or Open Project. So these two software, they are free and you can try and Google and download it to your laptop or computer. Later on, I will show an example using Project Libra. Okay, so we also have Work Breakdown Structure, WBS. So it organizes project work into manageable tasks which are necessary to carry out and complete the project. It says over here that it focuses on the work activities, completion of defined deliverable, and the timing of tasks. So the important part of it is WBS. It presents project tasks in a hierarchy with major, top level tasks, and also subtasks, right? So the one that we saw before, Gantt chart, so we have the timeline of it, while in WBS, it's in a hierarchy level task. For example, over here, this is a WBS tree diagram. Right, so you would start off with a high-level task, and then you would identify any subtasks that you have, and then within your subtask, you have more subs to it. Right? So this one, it depends on how you arrange your project. Over here shows the Gantt chart in WBS schedule from the previous slide. So the first thing that you need to do before you do your Gantt chart is you would do your WBS first, so that you can identify all the activities in the project before you would develop the Gantt chart. Then only you would think about for each of the tasks, how long it would take to finish it. So Gantt chart advantages. It is able to identify a duration of time required to complete one activity, together with the allocated money and also the human resources. However, Gantt chart could not show the relationship between the activities, so it does not connect from one task to another task. You would not know whether do you need to complete the first task, then only you can do the second task, or the first task and second task would run at the same time. So we have this PERT chart, where PERT chart is a project management tool used to schedule, organize, and coordinate tasks within a project. So PERT chart, it can show the connection between the activities that have been determined to complete the project. So this is showing an example of a PERT chart where you have your number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So those are called as nodes. And then the one that you see over here, it says create schedule, programming, task code, task system, and so on. Those are the activities. And then the numbers over here, 10, 20, 20, 10, 10. So those represent how many days it takes for the activity to be done. So this is one way of doing the PERT chart, or you can also represent your PERT chart this way, right? So you have your task number or the name of your task, how many days, and then when it starts and when it ends, right? So this legend over here, it says your task name, the number of your task, the length or how many days it takes. You have your start date and also your end date. Okay, so PERT chart components, it has the activity and also the node. So activity is labeled with a simple name that explains the activity, and the name is put on top of the line that connects two nodes. The time to complete the activity is put under the line, so how many days it takes, right? And it can be month, week, or days, so it depends on your project. The node, it is being represented by a small circle that is located at the beginning and also the end of the activity. A pair of nodes form an activity, and then the number in a node is arranged in an ascending order, right? So you start with the 1, 2, 3, and so on. So in PERT chart, there is this concept of critical path, right? So critical path is the sequence of connected activities that produce the longest overall time. So this is important because changes in the critical path will give an impact on the whole time to complete the project. So if the critical path is delayed, then it will delay the final completion of the project. For example, over here, so we have this PERT chart. So we have our node 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have our activities. So instead of writing the activities, we say that, okay, planning for survey, 5 days, that is represented by A. Questionnaire design, 5 days, that is represented by B, and so on, right? So we simplify our activities with A, B, C, D, E, F, and also G. Right, so this is just showing the same figure from before. So to identify the critical path, we would calculate how many days it takes in each of the paths. Like over here in this figure, we have two paths. One is going from A, B, E, F, and G, and we know that how many days it takes, which is A is 5, B is 5, E is 2, F is 5, and G is 5. So that is 22 days. And then we have another path going from A, C, D, F, and G, right? So that is taking 5 plus 5 plus 3 plus 5 plus 5. So that is 23 days. The one that is the longer one, so that is your critical path, meaning that if you are delaying or any of the activities at that path is delayed, then the project would be delayed. So here is showing another example where you have more paths, right? So from this figure, you have to calculate for each of them. Like the first one is ADHJ, and then you have BEHJ, and then you have BFJ, and also CGIJ, right? And then based on all those paths, so those paths from beginning until the end, whichever that is the longest, that is the critical path. Okay, so the advantages of PERT chart, it helps managers to monitor an ongoing project, and then using critical path, managers can determine the progress of a project by comparing the actual time to complete a project with the real time to achieve to complete. So PERT chart is sometimes preferred over Gantt chart because PERT chart illustrate task dependencies. However, PERT chart can be more difficult to interpret, especially on complex projects. The examples that we saw previously, those are some simple ones. Real projects, they would be more complicated and more complex paths. Frequently, project managers use both techniques. Going back to this form, you can see that in the research methodology, in the chart part, they only ask for Gantt chart. It does not ask for any PERT chart or WBS, right? So it depends on what is required in the form or in your project, what are being asked for you to submit to them, right? On Padlet, I posted these questions. How would you create WBS, Gantt chart, and PERT chart based on what you have written in question 1, which is on your assignment 3? Post your WBS, Gantt chart, and also PERT chart. And one of the questions that I asked in Padlet was I asked, which of this should you do first? Should you do WBS first, Gantt chart first, or PERT chart first? Right? So the important part is you would do your WBS first, because that allows you to know what is your project about, what are your goals, and then what are the tasks need to be done, without having to worry about how many days it would take for each of the tasks, right? So you would start off with WBS, and then you can do Gantt chart or PERT chart. So it depends on which one you prefer. Later on, I will show you the project Libra, where you only need to write the Gantt chart, and it will create the WBS and also the PERT chart automatically based on your Gantt chart. Okay, so going back to this question, right? On our assignment 3, so do you still remember about your assignment 3? Right, so assignment 3, it asks you to create a website about UUM, right? And then in your assignment 3, there are 3 things that you need to submit. So you have to do your website, and then you have to submit your report, and also you have to do a presentation, right? So presentation is up to you whether you want to have some slides or you just want to go through your websites and explain from there, whichever way that you prefer. Right, so let's draw our WBS. If you remember the example that I showed you in class, so my website, I want to do about Richiamo at UUM, right? So that is my assignment, right? So I want to write about Richiamo in UUM. So I know that there are 3 things that I need to do. So those 3 things that I need to do, that would be my main task, right? So I know that the first one, I need to create a website, and then I need to write a report, and then I need to prepare for my presentation, right? So as I said before, presentation is up to you whether you want to create slides or you just want to show your website and then just explain from there. Okay. So these are just the main tasks. So I would have the subtask, for example, on my website task, I would think about what kind of hosting would I use. Right? So I can use Cities, or I can use Wix, WordPress, or anything else that I prefer. Right? So I need to find out what kind of host I want to use, and then I need to think about what kind of content that my website would contain. Right? So these are the subtasks within the website. And then if I want to be more detailed, the content, I can have subtasks for the content. For example, in the content, I want to have a page called Home, where inside Home, I might just explain about Richiamo, right? And then maybe I would have another content that I call About, where I can tell about Richiamo specifically in UUM. Right? So that is just an example for the website part. For the report part, so maybe the sub of the report, in the report I would write about the introduction, about what my website is about, and then I would go through the different types of hosting, compare them, and then why I choose, for example, why I choose Wix, and then explain my reasons. And then in the report, I would include some screenshots of my website and then some explanation about it. Right. Okay, and then for the presentation task, so maybe I decide that I want to do a live presentation and I want to use WebEx. Okay, and then I would think about if I use slides, what are the content that my slide would have. For example, maybe I would add some of the screenshots and then I would explain based on the screenshots, and maybe I want to include the timeline of the project. So maybe I can write things like it took me 3 weeks to do the website, 1 week to write the report, and so on. Right? So it's up to you what you want to write inside your report and also in your presentation. So the presentation, it can be a summary of your report. So you can include everything, or you can just present any part of it that you find important. Right? So this is one example that you can refer to. So now try and draw the WBS for your assignment, whichever that you choose to write about.